Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, right here in the live studios at Radha Lane. Radhastami is coming up. Just a couple of days. This is Radha Lane. They named this little cul-de-sac that we live on Radha Lane. Very intelligent administrators we have in our society here in ISKCON Houston. Okay, and we're right down the pathway from Radha Nilamadhava and their beautiful temple in Giriraj, Govardhan, the largest Govardhan Shila outside of India, and Shri Shri Gaur Nitai. So we're lucky, really lucky. We live in the company of Krishna's pure devotees. By pure devotee we mean people who come to serve the Lord and without ulterior motives. So there's a beautiful prayer that was written by one of the most profound authors and spiritual personalities in the line of spiritual authority that we come from. He was instructed by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who appeared 500 years ago on the earth. He was Krishna himself, in the mood of Srimati Radharani. So he's Radha and Krishna together in the same form. And because the female nature is more compassionate, he came and he's chasing after all of us to try to convince us to come back to him, back to the spiritual world. So this is Sanatana Goswami's glorification of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, which we'll be reading today, and which is the Summum Bonum of all truths. Srimad-Bhagavata Mahima Stotram. And it goes like this. Sarva Shastabdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabho Kalidwan Dudita Ditya Shri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Shri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshakshadayate Sarvada Sarvaseyaya Shri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flight of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Shri Krishna himself. Madhika Bando Matsangin Madguro Man Mahadana Manistadaka Madbhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu sadhutadayin ati nichochata kada anamunchagada chinmam premnarit kadayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So we've reached the 10th canto of the Srimad-Bhagavatam. There are 12 cantos in the Bhagavatam, and the first 9 cantos explain the details in great detail. There's 335 chapters in the Srimad-Bhagavatam. It's 18 volumes of pure, unadulterated nectar and deep understanding of the absolute truth, which we're all looking for, whether we know it or not. Everyone's looking for truth, and everyone is actually looking for the absolute truth. But most people don't know it because they don't even understand that there is an absolute truth. There's so many relative truths. There's so many people claiming to be the knower of the truth and the giver of the truth, and they mislead people. And if we actually come in contact with the absolute truth, it's different from all other truths. So the first 9 cantos explain in detail the different opulences of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It explains how it is that the source of everything must be a conscious, sentient being, which all bona fide religions admit that there is God, and they even sometimes call him the Father, the seed giver of all living beings. But nowhere will you find the depth of detail in comprehension and understanding, and even the development of relationship with the Supreme Being, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, like the Srimad-Bhagavatam. And when we come to through this description of the creation of the universe and all the elements and how they come from the original Supreme Person, how all the codes of information content that are required to construct all the forms, just like the mother and father get together, and by the DNA and the codes of information content contained within the 2 bodies, then another form is created, and it never has an information content that is greater than the source content. Therefore, anyone who hears this with honesty and a pure heart and is reasonable can understand that the source of everything must be a person who is greater than everyone and everything else. And that is the definition given in the first verse of the Srimad-Bhagavatam. And in 18,000 verses, 335 chapters, this Supreme Person, the Absolute Truth, Summum, Bonum, is described in depth. Now we've reached the 10th canto. Lucky for all of you who are just coming for the first time, because you're taking a shortcut. You come to the 10th canto, which is likened to the smiling face of the Supreme Personality of God. Just like we have faces, all of us do. And generally speaking, if you're a sane person, then the face is the most attractive part. You always want to see your friend smile. You know, when you see your friend smile, that makes you feel good, whether it be your child or your friend or your lover or your husband or wife or whatever, or even your professors or even your boss. You know, it makes you feel good. So this 10th canto is the description of the source of all other incarnations of God, the source of all energies, the source of all beauty, the source of all strength, the source of all knowledge, the source of all wisdom. That's the Supreme Person. And we've reached the 10th canto, and now, by the grace of the Lord, in this chapter we've heard the prayers that Krishna's, the devotee who was acting as Krishna's father, when Krishna comes into the world, he has a mother and father. He doesn't have a mother and father. He's the source of everything and everyone, but he pretends. It's like a drama. Like he acts like he has a mother and father. And his greatest devotees, 2 of his greatest devotees, act like his mother and father. Now that's interesting, because we're always thinking, oh Father, thou art in who are in heaven. We want to treat God as a father. Why? Because we want, give me, give me, give me. You know, the kid is always, give me, daddy, mommy, but give me. But in this relationship with Krishna, the highest relationship with God, you can actually protect God and serve God as if He's your son. And in that way you become superior to God. You're not really superior to God, but He allows you to have seem like a superior relationship in order to satisfy your desire to have a loving relationship with Him on that level. So all the relationships that we have here between one another are available with God in the spiritual world. So now He's appeared, and His mother and father have offered these beautiful prayers, and now He's going to speak back to them. Canto 10, chapter 3, beginning with text 32. The Supreme Personality of Godhead replied, "My dear mother, best of the chaste, in your previous birth, in the Swayambhuva millennium, you were known as Prishni, and Vasudeva, who was the most pious Prajapati, was named Sutapa." Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead made it clear that Devaki had not become His mother only now. Rather, she had been His mother previously also. Krishna is eternal, and His selection of a father and mother from among His devotees takes place eternally. Previously also, Devaki had been the Lord's mother, and Vasudeva the Lord's father, and they were named Prishni and Sutapa. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead appears, He accepts His eternal father and mother, and they accept Krishna as their son. This pastime takes place eternally, and is therefore called Nitya Leela. Thus, there was no cause for surprise or ridicule. As confirmed by the Lord Himself in Bhagavad Gita 4:9, Janma karma jame divyam evam yo veti tatpataha tyaktva deham punarjanma naitimam iti sorjuna. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. One should try to understand the appearance and disappearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead from Vedic authorities, not from imagination. One who follows his imaginations about the Supreme Personality of Godhead is condemned. Avajanam nimam mudha manushim tanamashritam param bhavamajananto mamabhuta maheshwaram. Bhagavad Gita 9:11. The Lord appears as the son of His devotee by His param bhavam. The word bhava refers to the stage of pure love, which has nothing to do with material transactions. Text 33. When both of you were ordered by Lord Brahma to create progeny, you first underwent severe austerities by controlling your senses. Purport. Here is an instruction about how to use one's senses to create progeny. According to Vedic principles, before creating progeny, one must fully control the senses. This control takes place through the Garbhadhana Sanskara. In India, there is a great agitation for birth control in various mechanical ways, but birth cannot be mechanically controlled. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 13:9, Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi, Dukkha Doshanu Darshanam. Birth, death, old age, and disease are certainly the primary distresses of the material world. People are trying to control birth, but they are not able to control death. And if one cannot control death, one cannot control birth either. In other words, artificially controlling birth is not any more feasible than artificially controlling death. According to Vedic civilization, procreation should not be contrary to religious principles, and then the birth rate will be controlled. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 7:11, Dharma viruddho bhuteshu kamosmi, sex not contrary to religious principles, is a representation of the Supreme Lord. People should be educated how to give birth to good children through sanskaras, beginning with the Garbhadana sanskara. Birth should not be controlled by artificial means, for this will lead to a civilization of animals. If one follows religious principles, he automatically practices birth control, because if one is spiritually educated, he knows that the after effects of sex are various types of misery, bahu, dukkha, bhaja. One who is spiritually advanced does not indulge in uncontrolled sex. Therefore, instead of being forced to refrain from sex or refrain from giving birth to many children, people should be spiritually educated, and then birth control will automatically follow. So now we don't have to look very far anymore. Just read the papers or your device, your news sites and your device, and see how many people are shooting and killing each other, human beings, in just a short period of time in this country. Human beings don't do that. So the fact that he's talking about civilization of animals that comes about by not controlling oneself in religious principles, it's actually a fact. And the evidence is in front of our eyes. We just have to learn how to evaluate the evidence based on spiritual science and knowledge, not based on just sentiment. If one is determined to make spiritual advancement, he will not beget a child unless able to make that child a devotee. As stated in Srimad-Bhagavatam 5:18, Pita nasasyat. One should not become a father unless one is able to protect his child from mrityu, the path of birth and death. But where is the education about this? A responsible father never begets children like cats and dogs. Instead of being encouraged to adopt artificial means of birth control, people should be educated in Krishna consciousness, because only then will they understand their responsibility to their children. If one can beget children who will be devotees and taught to turn aside from the path of birth and death, mrityu, samsara, vartmani, there is no need of birth control. Rather, one should be encouraged to beget children. Artificial means of birth control have no value. Whether one begets children or does not, a population of men who are like cats and dogs will never make human society happy. It is therefore necessary for people to be educated spiritually, so that instead of begetting children like cats and dogs, they will undergo austerities to produce children, to produce devotees. This will make their lives successful, and by the way, it will make the world peaceful. And when we sit together like this and hear the truth coming from proper spiritual authority, we get a sense, we taste something different. Such a variety of personalities and ages and genders and positions in society, and yet when we hear this together, we feel like we're of the same family, because the truth is we are. Text 33 and 34 and 35. My dear father and mother, you endured rain, wind, strong sun, scorching heat, and severe cold, suffering all sorts of inconveniences according to different seasons, by practicing pranayama to control the air within the body through yoga, and by eating only air and dry leaves fallen from the trees, you cleansed from your minds all dirty things. In this way, desiring a benediction from me, you worshipped me, with peaceful minds. Purport. So this is the purpose of yoga, to have a peaceful mind, so that we can actually think about God. But in order to think about God, you have to have more than a peaceful mind. You have to know who God is. Purport. Vasudeva and Devaki did not obtain the Supreme Personality of Godhead as their son very easily, nor does the Supreme Godhead accept merely anyone as his father and mother. Here we can see how Vasudeva and Devaki obtained Krishna as their eternal son. In our own lives, we are meant to follow the principles indicated herewith for getting good children. Of course, it is not possible for everyone to get Krishna as his son, but at least one can get very good sons and daughters for the benefit of human society. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said that if human beings do not follow the spiritual way of life, there will be an increase of Varna Sankara population begotten like cats and dogs, and the entire world will become like hell. Not practicing Krishna consciousness, but simply encouraging artificial means to check the population will be futile. The population will increase, and it will consist of Varna Sankara, unwanted progeny. It is better to teach people how to beget children, not like hogs and dogs, but in controlled life. The other day I saw an article that described how a baby was put into a plastic bag and put into a dumpster. And somehow or other, a policeman or somebody, they sensed something, they found, and they saved the life of the child. Only a dog or a cat would do that, no human being. Human life is not meant for becoming a hog or dog, but for tapo divyam, transcendental austerity. Everyone should be taught to undergo austerity, tapasya. Although it may not be possible to undergo tapasya like that of Krishna and Sutapa, the Shastra has given an opportunity for a method of tapasya very easy to perform, the Sankirtan movement. One cannot expect to undergo tapasya to get Krishna as one's child, yet simply by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra Kirtanad Eva Krishnasya, one can become so pure that one becomes free from all the contamination of this material world, Mukta Sangha, and goes back home, back to Godhead, Param Brajet. The Krishna consciousness movement, therefore, is teaching people not to adopt artificial means of happiness, but to take the real path of happiness, as prescribed in the Shastra, the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, and become perfect in every aspect of material existence. Text 36. Thus you spent 12,000 celestial years performing difficult activities in tapasya, in consciousness of me, Krishna consciousness. Text 37, 38. O sinless Mother Devaki, after the expiry of 12,000 celestial years, in which you constantly contemplated me within the core of your heart, with great faith, devotion, and austerity, I was very much satisfied with you. Since I am the best of all bestowers of benediction, I appeared in this same form as Krishna to ask you to take from me the benediction you desired. You then expressed your desire to have a son exactly like me. Purport. 12,000 years on the celestial planets is not a very long time for those who live in the upper planetary system, although it may be very long for those who live on this planet. Sutapa was the son of Brahma, and as we have already understood from Bhagavad Gita 8:17, one day of Brahma equals many millions of years according to our calculation. Sahasra Yuga Paryantam Ahar Yad Brahmano Viduhu. We should be careful to understand that to get Krishna as one's son, one must undergo such great austerities. If we want to get the Supreme Personality of Godhead to become one of us in this material world, this requires great penance. But if we want to go back to Krishna, tyaktva deham punar janma naitimam iti sorjana, we need only understand him and love him. Through love only, we can very easily go back home, back to Godhead. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore declared, Prema Pumarto Mahan. Love of Godhead is the highest achievement for anyone. As we have explained, in the worship of the Lord, there are 3 stages: Jnana, Jnanamayi, and Rati, or love. Sutapa and his wife, Prishni, inaugurated their devotional activities on the basis of full knowledge. Gradually they developed love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and when this love was mature, the Lord appeared as Vishnu, although Devaki then requested him to assume the form of Krishna. To love the Supreme Personality of Godhead more, we want a form of the Lord like Krishna or Rama. We can engage in loving transactions with Krishna especially. In this age we are fallen, but the Supreme Personality of Godhead has appeared as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to bestow upon us love of Godhead directly. This was appreciated by the associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Rupa Goswami said, Namo Mahabhadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gora Tvije Namaha. In this verse, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is described as Mahabhadanya, the most munificent of charitable persons, because he gives Krishna so easily that one can attain Krishna simply by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. We should therefore take advantage of the benediction given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and when by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra we are cleansed of all dirty things, Cheto Darpanam Arjanam, we shall be able to understand very easily that Krishna is the only object of love. Kirtanad eva Krishnasya mukta sangha padam brajet. Therefore, one need not undergo severe penances for many thousands of years. One need only learn how to love Krishna and be always engaged in his service. Sevan mukhe jivadao swayam eva sprudatyadaha. Then one can very easily go back home, back to Godhead. Instead of bringing the Lord here for some material purpose, to have a son or whatever else, if we go back home, back to Godhead, our real relationship with the Lord is revealed, and we eternally engage in our eternal relationship. By chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, we gradually develop our eternal relationship with the Supreme Person, and thus attain the perfection called Surup Siddhi. We should take advantage of this benediction and go back home, back to Godhead. Srila Narottam Das Thakur has therefore sung Patitta Pavana Hetu Tava Avatar. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared as an incarnation to deliver all fallen souls like us and directly bestow upon us love of Godhead. We must take advantage of this great benediction of the great personality of Godhead. Text 39. You won't hear any politics over here from the pulpit. Text 39. Being husband and wife, but always sonless, you were attracted by sexual desires, but by the influence of Devamaya, transcendental love, you wanted to have me as your son. Therefore, you never desired to be liberated from this material world. Purport. Vasudeva and Devaki had been dampati, husband and wife, since the time of Sutapa and Prishni, and they wanted to remain husband and wife in order to have the Supreme Personality of Godhead as their son. This attachment came about by the influence of Deva Maya. Loving Krishna as one's son is a Vedic principle. Vasudeva and Devaki never desired anything but to have the Lord as their son. Yet for this purpose, they apparently wanted to live like ordinary grihastas for sexual indulgence. Although this was a transaction of spiritual potency, their desire appears like attachment for sex in conjugal life. If one wants to return home back to Godhead, one must give up such desires. This is possible only when one develops intense love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has said, Nishkinchanasya Bhagavat Bhajanon Mukhasya Param Padam Jigamishor Babasagarasya. If one wants to go back home, back to Godhead, one must be nishkinchana, free from all material desires. Therefore, instead of desiring to have the Lord come here and become one's son, one should desire to become free from all material desires. Anya bilashita shunyam, and go back home, back to Godhead. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu teaches us in his Shikshashtaka, Nadanam Najanam Nisundarim Kavitam Va Jagadishaka Maye Mama Janmani Janmarishware Bhavatad Bhaktir Ahaituki Twayi. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service in my life, birth after birth. One should not ask the Lord to fulfill any materially tainted desires. Text 40. Now you know why there aren't so many of us. Translation. After you received that benediction and I disappeared, you engaged yourselves in sex to have a son like me, and I fulfilled your desire. Purport. According to the Sanskrit dictionary Amara Kosha, sex life is also called Gramya Dharma, material desire. But in spiritual life, this Gramya Dharma, the material desire for sex, is not very much appreciated. If one has a tinge of attachment for the material enjoyments of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, one is not nishkinchana. But one really should be nishkinchana. Therefore, one should be free from the desire to beget a child like Krishna by sexual enjoyment. This is indirectly hinted at in this verse. Text 41. Since I found no one else as highly elevated as you in simplicity and other qualities of good character, I appeared in this world as Prishnigarbha, or one who is celebrated as having taken birth from Prishni. Purport. In the Treta Yuga, the Lord appeared as Prishnigarbha. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, Prishnigarbha iti so yam Trita Yuga Vatardo Lakshate. Text 42. In the next millennium, I again appeared from the two of you, who appeared as my mother Aditi and my father Kashyapa. I was known as Upendra, and because of being a dwarf, I was also known as Vamana. Text 43. O supremely chaste mother, I, the same personality, have now appeared as you both. O supremely chaste mother, I, the supreme personality, have now appeared of you both as your son for the third time. Take my words as the truth. This is a little better than a burning bush. Hare Krishna. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead chooses a mother and father from whom to take birth again and again. The Lord took birth originally from Sutapa and Prishni, then from Kashyapa and Aditi, and again from the same mother and father, Vasudeva and Devaki. In other appearances also, the Lord said, I took the form of an ordinary child just to become your son, so that we could reciprocate eternal love. Jiva Goswami has explained this verse in his Krishna Sandarbha, 96th chapter, where he notes that in text 37 the Lord says, Amuna Bapusha, meaning by this same form. In other words, the Lord told Devaki, this time I have appeared in my original form as Sri Krishna. Srila Jiva Goswami says that the other forms were partial expansions of the Lord's original form. But because of the intense love developed by Prishni and Sutapa, the Lord appeared from Devaki and Vasudeva in his full opulence as Sri Krishna. In this verse, the Lord confirms, I am the same Supreme Personality of Godhead, but I appear in full opulence as Sri Krishna. This is the purport of the words Tenaiva Bapusha. When the Lord mentioned the birth of Prishni Garbha, he did not say Tenaiva Bapusha, but he assumed Devaki. But he assured Devaki that in the third birth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna had appeared, not his personal partial expansion. Prishni Garbha and Vamana were partial expansions of Krishna, but in this third birth, Krishna himself appeared. This is the explanation given in Sri Krishna Sandarbha by Srila Jiva Goswami. Text 44. I have shown you this form of Vishnu just to remind you of my previous births. Otherwise, if I appeared like an ordinary human child, you would not believe that the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu has indeed appeared. Purport. Devaki did not need to be reminded that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, had appeared as her son. She already accepted this. Nonetheless, she was anxious, thinking that if her neighbors heard that Vishnu had appeared as her son, none of them would believe it. Therefore, she wanted Lord Vishnu to transform himself into a human child. On the other hand, the Supreme Lord was also anxious, thinking that if he appeared as an ordinary child, she would not believe that the Lord Vishnu had appeared. Such are the dealings between the devotees and the Lord. The Lord deals with such devotees exactly like a human being, but this does not mean that the Lord is one of the human beings, for this is the conclusion of non-devotees. Abhajananti mam mudha manushim tanamashritam. Devotees know the Supreme Personality of Godhead under any circumstances. This is the difference between a devotee and a non-devotee. The Lord says, Manmana bhava mad bhakto madjaji mam namaskuru. Engage your mind always in thinking of me. Become my devotee. Offer obeisances and worship me. A non-devotee cannot believe that simply by thinking of one person, one can achieve liberation from this material world and go back home, back to Godhead. But this is a fact. The Lord comes as a human being, and if one becomes attached to the Lord on the platform of loving service, one's promotion to the transcendental world is assured. Text 45. So this is the natural gift. The soul's original nature is to love God and to serve. Therefore, when we're little babies, and we see our parents doing something, we naturally run over and want to help. Isn't it? It's natural. And then when we come to sex and all that stuff, then we lose that. We don't want to serve. We want everybody to serve us. But the natural, therefore, the Lord Jesus said, you have to become as if a little child in order to go back to the kingdom of God. It means the nature to want to serve, to want by nature. If a little baby comes to you with something, anything, little leaf or anything, a new guest has come in and they come to you and say, oh, here, this, you take this for you. Your heart immediately opens up, immediately. Because you know there's nothing behind it. There's no, I'm giving you this, so you have to give me something else. It's pure. Unconditional love. I'll read this verse again in that context. Both of you, husband and wife, constantly think of me as your son, but always know that I am the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By thus thinking of me constantly with love and affection, you will achieve the highest perfection, returning home, back to Godhead. Purport. This instruction by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to his father and mother, who are eternally connected with him, is especially intended for persons eager to return home, back to Godhead. One should never think of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as an ordinary human being, as non-devotees do. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, personally appeared and left his instructions for the benefit of all human society. But fools and rascals unfortunately think of him as an ordinary human being and twist the instructions of Bhagavad Gita for the satisfaction of their senses. Practically everyone commenting on Bhagavad Gita interprets it for sense gratification. It has become especially fashionable for modern scholars and politicians to interpret Bhagavad Gita as if it were something fictitious. And by their wrong interpretations, they are spoiling their own careers and the careers of others. The Krishna consciousness movement, however, is fighting against this principle of regarding Krishna as a fictitious person and accepting that there was no battle of Kurukshetra, that everything is symbolic, and that nothing in Bhagavad Gita is true. In any case, if one truly wants to become successful, one can do so by reading the text of Bhagavad Gita as it is. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu especially stressed the instructions of Bhagavad Gita, Yari Deka Tarha Krishna Tarikaha Krishna Upadesh. If one wants to achieve the highest success in life, one must accept Bhagavad Gita as spoken by the Supreme Lord. By accepting Bhagavad Gita in this way, all of human society can become perfect and happy. So the Bhagavad Gita is the basic scripture. There's 700 verses. And this is the Bhagavatam. And the Bhagavatam starts off where the Bhagavad Gita leaves off. The Bhagavad Gita reveals that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but doesn't give much detail about his life, the spiritual world, relationships with his devotees, and all those things. But establishes clearly the difference between matter and spirit, the soul and the body, and therefore the source of both, Krishna. And then the Bhagavatam starts from that verse, the first verse, and then explains in great detail in 18,000 verses. And just by reading this book sincerely, one can become a perfect knower of God, or as much as we can know. We're limited. We can't know God perfectly because He's unlimited and we're limited. But what we can know, as much as we can know, is given to us by the Srimad-Bhagavatam. It is to be noted that because Vasudeva and Devaki would be separated from Krishna when he was carried to Gokula, the residence of Nanda Maharaj, the Lord personally instructed them that they should always think of him as their son and as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That would keep them in touch with him. After 11 years, the Lord would return to Mathura to be their son, and therefore there was no question of separation. Text 46. Shukadeva Goswami said, after thus instructing his father and mother, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna remained silent. In their presence, by his internal energy, he then transformed himself into a small human child. In other words, he transformed himself into his original form, Krishnastu, Bhagavan, Swayam. Well, that would convince you. Purport. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 4:6, Sambhavam Yatma Mayaya. Whatever is done by the Supreme Personality of Godhead is done by his spiritual energy. Nothing is forced upon him by the material energy. This is the difference between the Lord and an ordinary living being. The Vedas say, Parasya Shaktir Vibhadaiva Shruyate Swabhaviki Jnanabala Kriya Cha. Shrita Shritara Upanishad 6:8. It is natural for the Lord to be untinged by material qualities. And because everything is perfectly present in his spiritual energy, as soon as he desires something, it is immediately done. The Lord is not a prakrita shishu, a child of this world, but by his personal energy he appeared like one. Ordinary people may have difficulty accepting the Supreme Controller, God, as a human being, because they forget that he can do everything by spiritual energy. Atma Mayaya. Non-believers say, how can the Supreme Controller descend as an ordinary being? This sort of thinking is materialistic. Srila Jiva Goswami says that unless we accept the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as inconceivable, beyond the conception of our words and mind, we cannot understand the Supreme Lord. Those who doubt that the Supreme Personality of Godhead can come as a human being and turn himself into a human child are fools who think that Krishna's body is material, that he is born and that he therefore also dies. In Srimad-Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, 4th chapter, verses 28 and 29, there is a description of Krishna's leaving his body. Maharaj Parikshit inquired from Shukadeva Goswami, when all the members of the Yadu dynasty met their end, Krishna also put an end to himself, and the only member of the family who remained alive was Uddhava. How was this possible? Shukadeva Goswami answered that Krishna, by his own energy, destroyed the entire family and then thought of making his own body disappear. In this connection, Shukadeva Goswami described how the Lord gave up his body. But this was not the destruction of Krishna's body. Rather, it was the disappearance of the Supreme Lord by his personal energy. Actually, the Lord does not give up his body, which is eternal. But as he can change his body from the form of Vishnu to that of an ordinary human child, he can change his body into any form he likes. This does not mean that he gives up his body. By spiritual energy, the Lord can appear in a body made of wood or stone. He can change his body into anything because everything is his energy. Parasya Shaktir Bibidaiva Shruyate. As clearly said in Bhagavad Gita 7:4, Bina Prakritir Ashtada. The material elements are separated energies of the Supreme Lord. If he transforms himself into the Archa Murti, the worshipable deity, which we see as stone or wood, he is still Krishna. Therefore the Shastra warns, Arche Vishnau Shiladir Gurushu Naramati. One who thinks that the worshipable deity in the temple is made of wood or stone, one who sees a Vaishnava Guru as an ordinary human being, or one who materially conceives of a Vaishnava as belonging to a particular caste, is Naraki, a resident of hell. The Supreme Personality of Godhead can appear before us in many forms, as He likes, but we must know the true facts. Janma karma chame divyam, evam yo veti tatpataha. By following the instructions of sadhu, guru, and shastra, the saintly persons, the spiritual master, and the authoritative scriptures, one can understand Krishna. Then one makes his life successful by returning home, back to Godhead. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So we just read 15 verses out of 18,000 and just see what we learned. So our proposal is that you come and read these books with us, cover to cover. Could you get me the first canto? This is a classic piece of writing, Srila Prabhupada's preface to this book. And in the preface, he says this. Srimad-Bhagavatam begins with the definition of the ultimate source. It is a bona fide commentary on the Vedanta Sutra by the same author, Srila Vyasadeva, and it gradually develops into 9 cantos up to the highest state of God realization. The only qualification one needs to study this great book of transcendental knowledge is to proceed step by step, cautiously, and not jump forward haphazardly, as with an ordinary book. It should be gone through chapter by chapter, one after another. The reading matter is so arranged, with the original Sanskrit text, its English transliteration, synonyms, translation, and purports, so that one is sure to become a God-realized soul at the end of finishing the first 9 cantos. The 10th canto, which we're just beginning, is distinct from the first 9 cantos because it deals directly with the transcendental activities of the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. One will be unable to capture the effects of the 10th canto without going through the first 9 cantos. The book is complete in 12 cantos, each independent, but it is good for all to read them in small installments, one after the other. That is our proposal to the world. One person at a time. Okay, so we'll stop the reading now. We've been reading for about an hour. This is the program we do every day, 7 days a week. We read about an hour of this beautiful transcendental literature, and then afterwards we reflect on it. Anything that you've heard that stuck in your mind or stimulated you to want to know more about, or to reflect upon, or to inquire about, you're welcome. We have a little microphone, and there's lots of people out in the world who are watching and listening.
That's what I say, reflect upon.
Please. What's your name? What's your name?
Jair.
Huh?
Jair.
Oh yes,
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 oh,
yes.
yes.
I'm so sorry.
From Uruguay.
Yes, I'm so
Jair.
sorry. But say it again, Jair.
Like Jair, Jair.
Jair.
Jair. Mhm.
Well, I won't forget it again, will I?
First of all, thank you for having me.
Don't get old. Don't get old. It's a mistake.
You truly opened my eyes when you said that the whole relationship with Krishna in terms of father and son. When I contemplate I've always been a little wary and a little afraid of seeing it that way, but now with this perspective, it is a lot more welcoming for that relationship to actually function, that kind of relationship to actually take place. Beforehand, I was afraid because I wasn't sure how to guide that thought, but with that, what you just read, it actually opened up another door in my head. So thank you for that. A drop of nectar.
I'm convinced. Welcome aboard. Come around more often. That was wonderful reflection.
Thank you.
Beautiful reflection.
Anyone else?
You have nice spiritual intelligence.
Thank you.
Please use it in the service of the Lord. Come and join us and help spread this nectar, this knowledge. Because the world it's become an urgent situation.
Right.
There's a sense of urgency now. And many people are following it. Many people are following it. They're seeing what a mess the leaders have made of the world, and yet they don't know what to do about it. Neither the leaders, neither the followers. It's a complete chaos out there. They're burning down the earth.
The word is lost.
Yeah, the hurricanes are coming, and the earthquakes are coming, and the floods are coming.
Yeah.
It's just biblical.
Yeah.
It's a biblical thing. But when the world becomes so sinful and so forgetful and so inimical towards God, then the material nature kicks back, pushes back.
Right.
And that's what's happening.
And then you look at nature and everything has order, everything has place, and then all of a sudden you look at human society, where's this chaos coming from? Where are we where's our picture in this nature of chaos? No, we've lost our sense. We can't hear that music anymore. It's no longer.
Sign me up. You come and use that tongue and that brain to do what I'm doing. I've made a vow about 4 or 5 years ago that I would change my approach, my track, rather than sitting in a large group of people. I used to do that. It's called a platform speaker, where there's 1,000 people out there and you speak. But I'm finding out that really more important is to look for the needles in the haystack. The persons who actually have the brains and the heart. No. Because I keep going and you're going to surrender.
Somebody take this mic.
You know. It's all yours, Bubba. It's all yours, buddy. You asked for it and you got it.
That's true. I asked for it. I got myself into this again.
That's the truth. That's the truth. So now you've exposed yourself, that you actually are spiritually intelligent, awake, and advanced from previous lifetimes.
Stop.
And now it's time for you to start where you left off.
God, that feels so right to hear. Like, I love I was thinking to myself, had I done this already before? Have I already walked this way and come to a halt? And am I now barely picking up momentum again from where I left before?
Welcome to the club.
Right in my car.
Welcome to the club. You talk to anyone. You talk to any one of us that actually joined this movement and have given our lives to do this, and we all felt like this our whole lives. This is not an accident.
This is not an accident.
It's the truth.
I feel that.
Okay, I'll let you off the hook now.
Thank you.
But it's not the end of it.
That's not the end of it.
Jai. I'm not going to forget that one again. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. That was a beautiful reflection.
No, thank you.
And a beautiful question. Wow, looks like you got it.
I really got it this time.
Looks like you can't give it up. Okay, Hannah. Hannah came to visit and pick up her car, and she's driving back to Florida tomorrow.
Oh, wow. Fun journey.
I changed my mind. I'm going to stay for Red Ostomy.
Oh, good. Good. Very good.
We read in text 45, when Krishna was talking to his mother and father, "Both of you, husband and wife, constantly think of me as your son, but always know that I am the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By thus thinking of me constantly with love and affection, you will achieve the highest perfection, returning home back to Godhead." I wanted to ask a question, but also compare it in regards to reading the 1st through the 9th canto and understanding that Krishna is God. But when you enter the 10th canto, you start to see the loving relationships, like when we read earlier that Devaki was anxious about one thing, and then Krishna was also anxious about another. You see that it becomes more loving. So this is a basic question, but I really want to know what you have to say. By thus thinking of me constantly with love and affection, you will achieve the highest perfection. So how do we think of Krishna with love and affection?
Well, there's unlimited numbers of souls, individual souls, and just like each one of us is different. It's if you think about it really deeply, it's amazing. That there's so many people in the world, and every single one of them is different. We're not like apples on the tree. They can all look a little bit. Well, they're all so different, but they look pretty similar and taste similar. But the human body and the human beings are each one of them completely different. So this is a reflection of the spiritual world and the fact that each soul has a different relationship with Krishna. There's a saying, variety is the spice of life, or the mother of enjoyment, right? So Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. So he wants different relationships. And the souls are made such that they each have different desire to have an individual relationship with Krishna. So some of the souls in the spiritual world want to have a relationship with Krishna that is mixed between that pure, spontaneous love and love mixed with opulence, with awe and reverence, appreciation of the opulence of God. So therefore there's different environments in the spiritual world, just like there is different environments here. And people with different souls with different tendencies from previous lifetimes, they'll get birth in this specific country or a specific place, whatever, to be able to act out those desires. So Devaki and Vasudeva, they prayed after their austerities for a son like Krishna. Their love was mixed with reverence. But Yashoda and Nanda, who are who play the role as Krishna's parents in Vrindavan, which is the topmost spiritual environment, they don't have that awe and reverence at all. They never think of Krishna as God, and therefore Krishna doesn't reveal himself as God. He does sometimes do things that only God could do, and they therefore know, but their love is so sweet and powerful that it just overcomes it, it covers it, and therefore they never think of God as their son, Krishna, as God. Even when he does something just that no one else but God could do, they just think, anyway, that was some whatever that is. But anyway, here, take this and eat this, and come over here, and don't go over there, and whatever. Like a mother takes care of the son. So that's part of the answer. But the love is how do you get the love? Well, it's like how do you fall in love with someone? You meet them, that person looks pretty nice. Yeah, okay. And then you got to get to know them. Then you have to trust them. And so love and trust is the building block of love and obedience. If you actually love a person and they say, could you do this for me? You'll never say no. So that's the way you develop love. By associating with Krishna, by hearing about Krishna, by associating with Krishna, by associating with Krishna's devotees and the process of devotional service, then your love, which is there already, It's not that it's something that you get from outside and then bring inside. It's already there in the heart. But it's awakened in association with Krishna and in the association with things that are directly related with Krishna. And the more you get to know him, the more you can't help but love him. Because he's so wonderful. He's the most wonderful, he's the most beautiful, he's the richest, he's the most famous, he's the most powerful, he's the wisest, and he's the most renounced. So these things are all the opulences that make us attractive to one another. But he's got those things in full, unlimited. So therefore we have to get to know him. You get to know him by hearing about him. And therefore he comes periodically to the material world and shows us and explains it. And sometimes he'll send a representative, to the world when in a place where it's gotten too out of hand. Like it's out of hand now. So the Krishna consciousness movement, Lord Chaitanya came here 500 years ago and started this Krishna consciousness movement, and the process, as we heard in the purports today, of this chanting, it's so simple. It's so simple that people, especially sophisticated, educated techies, they think this is just too simple, It's got to be, you have to take the most difficult thing to get the highest thing. It must be the most difficult to do. But actually in this age, it's impossible for us to do very difficult things. We are too fallen. We're too fallen. The modes of nature that make up our body and our minds are not very potent. Whereas before the Kali Yuga, the Iron Age, the age of industrialization, and now electronics, has covered the soul so completely that lost track, of where that taste is. Even though it's there, the desire for enjoyment, the desire for knowledge, the desire to live forever, it's there in everyone, because that's who we are, that's what we are, that's the qualities that the soul has. So when the soul comes in contact by the arrangement of the super soul, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he's in the heart along with us. And when he sees that a person is actually either tired enough of the material world or inquisitive enough and is actually in search of something that's true and real, then he makes an arrangement for you to come in contact with devotees and the holy name and his transcendental pastimes. And if you associate with them, you will fall in love with him. And when you fall in love with him, if you fall head over heels in love with him, then you won't be able to live for a second without him. Then you'll come and join. And then there's only one thing to do. There's only one thing left, and that is to share it. Sharing means caring. Everyone knows it, but if we really care, and if we share the absolute truth, what will give a person complete happiness gradually. You can't get it right at the beginning, but when you become mature, then you can give it to others, especially with those who have the gift of gab. Don't think you'll ever get away. You revealed too much. Nice. Jai. Hare Krishna. Who else? Yes, Prana. I was wondering, hoping that you would.
There was one
part of the purports where Prabhupada said one should not ask the Lord to fulfill any materially tainted desires. He's talking about Devaki and Vasudeva and their previous births, that birth. They really wanted to have that son. And there was some mention about how we shouldn't ask the Lord to fulfill a desire that's materially tainted. So the shloka in the Bhagavatam in the second canto, akama sarvakamova mokshakama udaradihi
Tivrina
bhakti yogena yajete purusham param, which means whether one has all material desires, no material desires, or desires liberation, one should
wants to become free from desires.
One should worship the Lord, right, and do the bhakti yoga. So
with
intensity, with the intensity. And so I guess my question is, how do we understand that shloka in relation to this mention in the purport that one should not ask the Lord to fulfill materially tainted desires?
Well, it's a spiritual science, and you have to begin somewhere. It's like when you study, mathematics. You have to begin by learning the integers. Unless you learn the integers really thoroughly, like anybody who's educated. You remember when you were in first grade and they were teaching you 1 + 1 is equal to 2, and 3 divided by 3 is equal to 1, and 9 times 9 is equal to 81, and although you had to learn it. You had to learn it down cold. You couldn't, they wouldn't let you go to the next grade unless you knew it cold. Therefore I say anyone, what's 4 times 4?
16.
You didn't even have to think about it, right? But if I ask you something about integral calculus, or some really complicated, physics, there you go.
I'm a physics student.
There you go. Don't reveal too much. No, it's natural. No. We don't want that. It's natural. So, like that, in the beginning, Krishna says, whether you are full of material desires, whether you have no material desires, or whether you're hankering to be free from material desires, you should worship me. So that principle applies to everyone. Any place along the path of devotional service. Because why? Because Krishna, he has it all. He has what we want and then some. He knows everything within our experience and outside of our experience. So he's the only one who has everything, who can fulfill all our desires. Therefore, it's recommended that whatever grade you're in of devotional life, you should worship Krishna. Because then you will go forward and gradually come free from material desires. And then when you become free from material desires, then you can desire Krishna. Only Krishna. And if you desire only Krishna, then Krishna finally says, oh, all right. If you insist, here I am. And that's what he did with Prishni and Sutapa. They did austerity for like 10,000 years, 11,000 years. But Lord Chaitanya, Krishna in the form of Lord Chaitanya, is so kind, so loving, that he will give love of God whether you deserve it or not, without consideration. Only Krishna can do that. No one else can do that. You can't give what you don't have. Therefore, if you want to give happiness to others, you have to become happy yourself first. Then you can give it to others. So we offer ourselves to all of you to come here and associate, come see the deities, chant and dance, take spiritual food, become purified by taking the spiritual food. Replenish your cells and your, whatever You got inside with spiritual energy by eating only spiritual food. Stop eating from the fast food stuff and the convenient stores. Yeah, it's not. It's not. And look what's happening to the population. And you meet the devotees and they're different. They're different. There's no question about it. It's because we only eat Krishna Prasadam, and gradually we're coming to the point of only doing things that are meant to please Krishna and other people. And then you become completely satisfied. And the more satisfied you become, the more you want to give it to others. And the more you give it to others, the more it grows in your heart. And there's no limit. That's what makes Christian consciousness different than all other forms of devotional life.
It's restoring the order, restoring the harmony again from what was lost before.
Yes, exactly. Okay, we'll stop here. Hare Krishna at 7:30. This is our program. It's from 6 to 7:30. Thank you very much, Jair.
No, thank you.
Very much. And everyone else also, thank you. There's always, in all groups, there's usually, one or two that carry the conversation, but everyone else gets the benefit. So please come again. Come and join this movement. This is family. This is spiritual family life. And rather than just being attached to one or two or three or four, however many people are in your material family, you can become attached to everybody. Okay? Huh? Oh. Okay, let's hear it. We've got something from cyberspace. Rishi Kushiromani. He's just down the street. He's in the apartment over there. He's supposed to be here, but he's like, he lazed out and just decided to. What?
Because on here, all I have is it says, "Thank you, Guru Maharaj."
Really? You've got something different than. You want? Why don't you read it?
Here it is.
He says, "Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Your comments made during the reading reminds me of a talk you gave in Vrindavan a couple of years ago about reading Srimad-Bhagavatam out loud, attentively, systematically, daily, in order to spiritualize our material bodies, the material atmosphere, and the entire Virat Rupa. When we look at our world, the material-minded response is activism, but that is no solution. The real solution is to read Srimad-Bhagavatam and fill our lives, our communities, and our world with the transcendental sound vibration." Can you comment?
Yeah, my comment is that that's a perfect reflection, and I think we should all do it.
Haribol.
Nice summary of the Bhagavatam he just did. That's Rasika's nature. He's got it. He has a nice way of encapsulating things. So that's a good.
Indranuja Das was before him, and he says, "I'm wondering, when are you releasing the first audiobook for the BBT, Maharaj?"
Well, first of all, we have to record it. Then we have to edit it. I have no idea. It'll be at least a year before the Chaitanya Charitamrita comes out. At least, maybe more. And then we'll do the whole Bhagavatam, and that'll take a few years. So everybody have mercy on me. Hare Krishna. It's a big yajna we've started. No joke. Every day. Yeah. Because this is publishing. Prabhupada, he was very attached to publishing books. And this audiobook will be the first time that an official BBT book will be made in sound, which is very, very timely because everybody's into audio now. And also these readings are being transmitted through Facebook. And now they're being put into YouTube and archived so that you can go back to them and listen and relish. Okay.
Just a little cherry on the pie. Indranuja says, I just realized your readings always take place during the time of the ISKCON Vrindavan Mangalarti.
Wow.
That's maybe now since it's 6 o'clock.
Yeah. Thanks very much.
That's a nice-
Thanks very much, Indranuja. Hare Krishna. Thanks for the encouraging words. All right, Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
Vasudeva and Devaki ki jai. The Supreme Personality of Godhead Sri Krishna ki jai. See you tomorrow night, 6 o'clock, same station, same place, same time. Hare Krishna. Thanks to all of our guests who are here tonight, and they've just made our day. Especially Jair. Hare Krishna.